great to be working with all of you. Let's accelerate the good.
Yes. Yeah, just one question I always have. I think what is happening in America is it also seems like it's something that are really to take off. But I want to, who would you consider to be like the main driving force in the U.S.? Is it private companies that are thinking anew? Is it the states? Because there's a lot of difference between different states. And I think they are the main ones. Or local municipalities. The government as a whole, I think, is maybe a little bit more slower. But who would you consider the prime drivers of the development?
Really difficult question for me to answer. But what I'm absolutely certain of is that people think they identify at a local level, right? So increasingly, and this is the other advantage that we have working with sports teams, and that's not the only way we're going to get this message into the market, but people identify with their community, they identify with their city, they identify with their, to some extent with their state, but I'm from Virginia, so even in our area, it's Northern Virginia versus, the rest of Virginia. And California, I'm sure it's the same way, and elsewhere. So I think that, much as you've done in Oslo, I think what we're trying to do here is to have people see more and more at the local level that this is going to work for them. And when we get people thinking about how they use their car, they'll recognize that we have an option for them depending upon their driving needs that fits their pocketbook as well. If we have consistent state and local level support for that, not just federal, but those federal tax credits, both for infrastructure as well as vehicles, are extremely important. Also, I think it makes a huge difference. So it's difficult for me to say. I like to say all of them. There's just so many municipal authorities to work with, so we're trying to figure out how to leverage that message out.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. Dr. Wine. To Professor Myung-Ho Sun-wood of Hanyang University of South Korea, who's president of Electric Vehicle Association of Asia and Pacific, and he also is very expert in EVS, having attended also other before this one. To you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests from all over the world. This is personally great honor to join the EVS27, and also it's my big pleasure to update EV business in Korea. Again, my name is Myung-Ho Sun-woo. I'm a professor at the Hanyang University in Seoul, Korea. I'd like to cover my talk in two topics in this morning. Number one, a government project for new generation electric vehicle development project. And also I'd like to show some demonstration and promotion project occurred in Jeju Island in Korea. The Korean government has a big plan to develop new generation electric vehicle. At this time, this is just my personal judgment. I believe Nissan Leaf is the leader in EV market. So in order to compete against like EV, the best leader in the market like Nissan Leaf, Korea government has a big plan to develop a new EV by the year 2014. This is the current status of EV market in Korea. We do have three different manufacturers provide the three different electric vehicles. One from Hyundai and Kia Motor Group. Name of the vehicle is Ray EV. It was produced in 2011 through until now they sold 1,500 vehicles as of today. A second electric vehicle is available at this time, manufactured by Renault Samsung. The name of the vehicle is SM3ZE. ZE stands for Zero Emission Vehicle. They are going to build 1,000 in this year and 4,000 next year. So they're trying to become a number one EV market leader in Korea by the next year. Another vehicle from GM Korea, developed by old company called GM Daewoo, conjunction with the GM headquarters in the United States. Name of the vehicle is Spark EV. They are going to build this year to sell in Korean market and also overseas. I'd like to introduce about the government project for next generation EV. They put about $110 million to build this one by the year 2014 June. Project leader is Hyundai Motor Company. Also 44 organizations are involved to develop this one, including suppliers, power suppliers, research institute, and also universities. As you see in this table, next generation EV will be a little bit bigger than current EV from Kia Motors. And this is also, they can comfortably accommodate 5 passengers like a Nissan Leaf. But compared to current Nissan Leaf, this one has a bigger battery power to provide a longer range of driving distance, can go up to 200 kilometers per charge. And also, this vehicle can accelerate 0 to 100 kilometers per hour within 12 seconds, so which is very fast. Maximum speed of this vehicle will be 145 kilometers per hour. So I'd like to introduce about the promotion and demonstration project in Korea at this time. As like every country does to promote the EV, first of all, the Korean government will purchase EV for disseminating EV in Korean market. So public sector is the most important market at this time for EV. They also provide bigger incentive to general customers. It can go up to $20,000 when anyone who purchased the EV at this time. So this will cover about 50% of electric vehicle price. The government also trying to build more charging station to alert a lot of public customers to purchase the EV. So they're trying to provide the lowest interest loan from the government for installing a charging station. In order to disseminate EV by the Ministry of Environment, they're trying to sell more than 5,000 electric vehicles until 2014, by the year 2014. In order to make this happen, they're trying to put more charging stations by the year 2016. Currently, in Korea, we do have around 1,200 public charging stations, not include the private sectors, but they're trying to put more charging stations up to 15,000 by the year 2016. So they would like to build more than 10 times of charging stations than current numbers. This number actually reduced to 6,500 tons of CO2 annually. The number 6,500 tons is not really big. However, this is a big meaning for a lot of people who are considering environmental issues. This is the current status of EV charging facilities in Korea. As of last year, Korean government put around 1,200 charging stations, including slow and quick chargers. However, they're trying to put more than 15,000 units by the year 2016. Those are quick, medium, and slow chargers. I'd like to quickly, briefly overview of a demonstration project of EV in Jeju Island. There are more than 5 cars involved. Of course, Spark EV is also involved here. This is the Spark EV by GM Korea. And also, Ray electric vehicle by Kia Motors. And another vehicle from Renault Samsung. Name of the vehicle is SM3ZE EV. Since Renault Samsung, same as like Renault Nissan company, they are pushing really hard to become the #1 EV producer in Korea by the year 2014. They are going to build 1,000 vehicles this year and 4,000 vehicles next year, and they want to become the #1 in EV market in Korea. Jeju and Seoul will purchase 1,000 SM3 for taxi in 2014. Manufacturers suggesting retail price of SM3ZE is around $40,000. However, anyone who purchased this vehicle will get the reimbursed by 50% of this vehicle price. So it can go up to $20,000 from the government, locally, and central government as well. Currently, we do have around 1,600 EVs registered and driven by customers. This is the current status of evaluation project, including charging station and small size of a smart grid. Also, all kinds of sustainable energy producers are involved in this project. This is the Korean Peninsula. Very south from the Korean Peninsula, this is the Jeju Island. Northeast side of Jeju Island called Kuja. This is the area of demonstration and evaluation project of Korean EV. The project involved by many manufacturers, of course EV manufacturers, other than EV manufacturers, also telecommunication company, also electric power company, and other sustainable energy producers such as POSCOs and other solar cell manufacturers also. Like I mentioned, windmill producers and solar cell manufacturers are involved in this project, including energy storage system provider as well. They're trying to put all this sustainable energy to the smart grid, including electric vehicle and home uses. They provide more stations for EV users, and roughly 60 EVs are involved in these projects. I'd like to wrap up my presentation with a very most updated news from Hyundai Motor Company fuel cell electric vehicle. The gentleman from Norway, in Norway already 17 fuel cell electric vehicles are used, is that correct? Recently, Hyundai Motor Company got the contract from EU. The name of the project is FCHJU, stands for Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Joint Undertaking Project. They got the contract around 1,000 vehicles will be sold to EU, like Denmark, Norway, Netherlands, UK, and Sweden by the year 2015. This is the first massively producing fuel cell electric vehicle to the public sectors. And I would like to just to briefly introduce about this Tucson fuel cell electric vehicle by certain technical characteristics. Top speed will be, this vehicle can reach it to 160 kilometers per hour. It will take under 13 seconds to reach 100 kilometers per hour. Driving range is around 600 kilometers. Hydrogen bomb can sustain at 700 bars. Traction motor, little over 140 horsepower. So this will be the first massively used fuel cell electric vehicle produced by Hyundai Motor Company. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Sandwood. I think that we can close the session with just a few minutes delay. I think it is acceptable. Thank to all the person at the table, to the panel, and for the attention to all the audience. and I think I can close here. I don't know what is the next of the program. Gilly, you are there for that. Okay, Mr. Okay.
Hello, good morning everybody. I'm just looking for my third speaker of my session with Anthony Thompson. Is he somewhere in this room? He was present this morning, so I will start with these two speakers already. So good morning, my name is Yuri van Mierlo. I'm professor at the University in Brussels. I'm vice president of AVERE, the European Electric Hybrid and Fuel Cell Association. And I'm also the chairman of the International Scientific Program Committee of this conference. And it's my pleasure to chair this last part of the program, of these panel sessions, of these keynotes. And we had the opportunity this morning to discuss the different policies. I see my third speaker is there. Thank you. Welcome to the stage, Anthony. We had several presentations about policies, and indeed, if we want to bring electromobility to a reality, if we want to benefit from all the advantages of electromobility, and I'm not only talking about reducing emissions, improving air quality, reducing impact on climate change, but I'm also thinking about more employment, creating new jobs, being less dependent on import of crude oil. I think electromobility can play an important role in that. And we need policies for that. We saw this morning that we need policies ranging from R&D up to standardization, up to deployment, to promotion, to demonstration activities. And we saw different regions in the world, how they are doing that. But within all the actors needed for electromobility, there is one important actor, and that is the industry. The industry has to produce the technology and has to bring this technology into the market. And so for this last part of the opening session, we have from industry, from car industry a speaker, we have from infrastructure up to the producers of electricity. So I will start with my first speaker of today, which is a representation from Nissan. It is Mr. Takashi Shirakawa. Mr. Takashi Shirakawa is from Nissan Technical Center Europe, and there he is Vice President of Powertrain Design and Development, Vehicle Testing and LCV Engineering. So I'm very eager to see the viewpoints of Nissan in this field. Mr. Takashi Shirakawa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman, for your kind introduction. Buenos días a todos. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Takashi Shirakawa, Vice President of Nissan Technical Center Europe, in charge of partner development and Spain operation of R&D. It is a great pleasure to present the recent development of future technologies at the Electric Vehicle Symposium and Exhibition. From now on, I would like to explain how EV will be developed, and so allow me to move on to the topics. Automotive industry or automotive society have 4 issues for the sustainabilities: to secure the energy, to prevent the global warming, and to improve the traffic jams, and also minimize the traffic accident. These 4 issues we need to tackle with as finite goals. Today, I would like to emphasize how to solve these issues. By using electrical vehicle, we are aiming toward zero emission and zero fatalities. And today's topic is focusing for the zero emissions. And there is some discussion if EV is surely good for the CO2 reduction because of the well-to-foil or blah, blah, blah. However, I'm originally coming from power and development. I was struggled with how to reduce the emissions. Not only CO2, nitrogen oxide, hydrocarbon, carbon monoxide, soot. Those emissions need to solve. It is very easily, you can understand, to manage those emissions out of the power plant or to equip the complicated emission system for each vehicle, which is efficient. The answer is very obvious. I would like to start from the Nissan Leaf's selling station. At this moment, best-selling EV in global, more than 18,300 vehicles sold as of September 2013, and October we reached 18,700 vehicles. Year by year, market is expanded, and at this moment, Nissan global share is 46%. And previous session described, I would like to pick up again the real EV market situation. Nissan Leaf tops Norway October car sales, and over last 10 months, the Nissan Leaf has been Norway's 4th best-selling car. There is a discussion if current battery EV can be saleable application or not. My answer is if society is ready to aim the zero emission, and also in this period some support from government is ready. In that case, EV is definitely saleable application. As a reminder, I just touch upon the technical feature of the Nissan Leaf. Nissan Leaf is an EV-tailored platform introduced. From the beginning, we think about how EV works. And the platform prepared for the best of best running resistance, and also to improve the efficiency, a special accessory system introduced, and the vehicle shape also designed for the better aerodynamics. And needless to say, in-house thin laminated lithium battery produced and designed. At this moment, Nissan Leaf have 24 kilowatt hours. This enabled to the 199 kilometer driving range. This 24 kilowatt hour means if we talk about pressure, it's equivalent to 20 plate. And if we talk about fat, it's around 3 kilograms. If we talk about gasoline, it's 2.7 liters. obviously, only 2.7 liter gasoline enabled to drive 199 kilometers. You can easily understand how EV is efficient vehicles from energy saving viewpoint. As I mentioned, at this moment, as of September 2013, 83,000 vehicles were sold, and battery capacity reached to 2 million kilowatt hours. You know, electricity cannot save, cannot storage. So one of the ideas how to utilize the EV is to utilize this energy capacity as a as an energy of society. This is well known as some solar power generates the electricity and to charge the EV, and this energy will be used for the house energies. And another idea is to manage the charging of peak period. We charge into the electric vehicle and to utilize in daytime. And the power supply while blackout is typical ideas. This was just idea levels till recent. Nissan introduced a new product named Leaf to Home. That is a power control system enables bi-directional electricity management. Roughly speaking, 2 to 3 days with Nissan Leaf battery, people can live in the home and provide enough electricity to the house. And Leaf to Home is well received in Japan. Already we sold 2,000 units in Japan. This application was ready from this early spring, just 6 months or something like that. We already sold 2,000 units. And at this moment, roughly speaking, 7% of customers purchase Leaf to Home. This is another business opportunity. This, how to say, EV have a lot of opportunity to improve the energy securities, and large-scale field tests have begun all over the world. That's why we meet together at this conference. I expect lots of fruitful discussion in conference will provide the future technology evolution. I go back to the Nissan business. Nissan Leaf started to produce from Japan, and recently Nissan Leaf produced United Kingdom Sunderland plant as well. And Nissan Motor Iberca, Barcelona will be a home to the Nissan's second all-electrical vehicles. This secondary vehicle is named EVS27. It is in the final development phase and scheduled to launch in 2014. We already provide this demo car or trial vehicles to the customer, fleet customer or journalist, and get a lot of feedback. And we are now implementing those ideas into this vehicle as a light commercial vehicles. And obviously, it's very quiet and comfortable, and generous carrying capacity because we do not compromise any capacity as a light commercial vehicles. And this vehicle will be introduced for the Barcelona taxis. Then you can enjoy the EV drive very soon. To sum up with my discussion, Nissan Leaf is the first step for achieving sustainable and electric support mobility in social energy infrastructures. We all need to increase awareness with the public that EV are here and a real alternative for us and our lives. And the people of Barcelona will be able to experience the ENV200 taxi in 2014. Thank you very much for your attention. Enjoy your ride soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Shirakawa. There is no time for questions from the room. I don't want to keep you from your lunch. So I immediately invite my second speaker of this session, which is Mr. Anthony Thompson from Qualcomm. He comes from the United States. So Anthony Thompson, I'm very pleased to see you here on board of my panel, and I'll let you the floor.
That's great. Thank you very much. And it's Dr. Anthony Thompson from the UK rather than from the US, but apart from that, it's fine. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to touch on a quote that used to come from Woody Allen, which was that the world is run by those who show up. And it's a little bit pertinent to being late on stage, but but thank you all very much for showing up to be part of the future of transport. As we've only got a short time and we're running a little bit late, I just wanted to touch on a few elements to this pretty broad and extensive topic, and we'll sort of go through at reasonable pace. Our premise at Qualcomm is that the future of transportation is electric and wireless. And you can see around the vehicle some icons which display some of the sort of connected car technologies. And it's no coincidence that Qualcomm is an acknowledged leader, and as an acknowledged leader in wireless communications and technologies, is front and centre in the development of some of these technologies related to the connected car. But I think it's worthwhile just stepping back a second and looking at the broader context of why we're all sitting here, and what the trends are that are making this situation quite requiring of our attention. Now, a number of these trends, especially related to population increase and increase in urbanisation, are creating a situation that if we don't address it, we'll end up with poorer health in our cities and expensive bills for that health. Even quoted up around the order of 600 billion throughout Europe by the World Health Organization. So not insignificant amounts of money if we sit back and do nothing. Now, I just wanted to put out there that we think, and I gather that's why we're all here today, that EVs are part of the solution to some of these megatrend problems. But I think we need to recognise that there are still barriers to their mass uptake. Largely those barriers around the infrastructure, charging infrastructure. Plugging in vehicles is not the easiest thing. It's quite messy with cables and plugs. And also there is a tangible or an obvious lack of infrastructure at the moment. At Qualcomm, we strongly believe that a wireless, easy-to-use charging system is what's required to move the electric vehicles into mass market. And we think that because we think we need to shift the approach or the view that an event-based charging system or approach is, as mirrored in petrol and diesel vehicles, is the right approach for electric vehicles. Now, plugging a car in and charging it from pretty much empty to pretty much full, in our view, is the wrong approach. Our view is that you should charge up little and often. You should charge at home, at work, at the supermarket, at traffic lights, taxi ranks, even while the vehicles are driving. And we think that once that type of charging is adopted, then electric vehicles will become much more friendly to the user and then will drive mass market adoption. So let's just explore what that actually means. Now, as I said, we think wireless charging is key, and we think that because it adds a user experience which is unprecedented in electric vehicles. Having to plug a car in is a large barrier, both mentally and physically, when the infrastructure is not there. And trying to put in that infrastructure into a public environment has proved problematic. Now, we think by using wireless charging, which is basically a magnetic resonance system where you park over a pad and the car charges automatically and is effectively invisible to the user, is a fantastic enabler of mass uptake of wireless vehicles. You end up with basically no cables and plugs to mess with. So let me just dive in a little bit into what it means to bring a new technology like this to market. Now, a system such as a complex automobile requires due care when you're introducing something which uses magnetic resonance and radio frequency as its core technology. So trying to understand how to integrate that onto a vehicle is quite different to going and buying a set of fog lights from your local parts store and bolting them onto your car. So it needs a lot of attention as to the compatibility with other electronics on the vehicle, and it also needs an understanding of the compliance to the regulatory framework and the impact that that technology may have on us, on technologies that we use for health, like implantable medical devices, etc. And of course, it needs a lot of work early on with OEMs and the Tier 1 suppliers and infrastructure companies to make sure that this is so. Now, having said that, when we look at the effort that we've got to go to introduce a new technology such as this into a complex machine like an automotive or an automobile, we don't want to continuously have to do that heavy integration work with different changing technologies. So the technology has to be flexible, has to allow us to give different power levels or provide different power levels to different types of vehicles, and it also needs to be able to operate across platforms. Now, we think that people will drift up towards higher power, and we think that because people want to use their car more often, and they don't want to buy an expensive car and have it sit around charging and therefore not being able to be driven. So we think that there will be a tendency to go to higher power. So obviously the technology needs to be able to cope with that. Now, obviously, front and centre with any new technology development is safety. And putting a new technology, especially into a car or into the environment where humans and their animals, pets, etc., are coexisting, takes due consideration and care that we don't create any harm to us and our pets. So we need to be able to prevent hazards such as heating of objects on pads, etc. So our technology at Qualcomm incorporates foreign object detection and living object protection, and you can see an example of that on our booth. But it also needs global standards, and we've talked already about a lot of the complex nature of introducing a technology such as this into the automotive world. And I'm pleased to say that last week the SAE announced that they'd decided on a frequency of operation for wireless charging, 85 kilohertz, and that's fantastic. That's a frequency that we've advocated for a long time, and I think that's one tick in the road to having a global standard, which is very key for the development and deployment of a new technology such as this. So let me just summarise some of these elements to bringing a new technology into play. Now, we've talked about building safety and being compliant with regulations, understanding what those regulations mean, and also coexisting with other technologies on the vehicle, things like keyless entry, etc. But also trying to understand that the integration onto a vehicle is not insignificant, and there is a huge amount of work must go into integrating, packaging, and ensuring compliance and compatibility with other electronics on the vehicle, which mean that the technology of choice needs to be flexible enough to go across the broad range of vehicle platforms being developed and the different models within those platforms. And I think it's important that the focus on this what is a complex technology and a complex ecosystem is looked at an entire ecosystem approach. So you can't just approach this, as I mentioned, like, you know, fog lights or a roof rack. You know, it needs to be done from the ground up. And I think when a lot of the work we're doing, which is looking at the vehicle and trying to improve the user experience, is really talked to by the Formula E Championship, which is going to bring, you know, an unprecedented user experience to motorsport. And Qualcomm has been involved in this for some time now as an official founding partner, technology partner to Formula E. And we do get asked why we're interested in this. And I think from our perspective, we're excited to be a part and to be enabling the championship and really looking to add a new type of user experience that's hitherto not seen to a new generation of motorsport fans. And that's including wireless communications to allow high bandwidth, big data coming to the users, broadcast, allow people to interact at the track, but also wireless charging being the topic. And the wireless charging will be seen early on in the safety vehicles. We'll look then to roll it out into teams, and then ultimately the lofty goal is to have the vehicles charging while they race. And you can imagine all sorts of amazing propositions where you have driving lines or even off driving lines, wireless charging dynamically, where the teams have to make a choice or the drivers have to make a choice as to whether they're going to charge or race, or even how well they take a driving line is giving them more power. And that vehicle that you see in the photo, which was taken this morning, is on our stand, so you're welcome to come along and have a look at that. But I also extend an open invitation to a forum that we're having at 3 o'clock today to look at and discuss Formula E and the technologies within it and how that will affect and impact the electric vehicle uptake. And I'll be joined by CEO of Formula E Holdings, Alejandro Agag, and team principal of Drayson Racing, Paul Drayson, to discuss and do a bit of networking. So we'd love it if you all came along to that. So I'll wrap that up. We'd love to see you this afternoon, and hopefully we will. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for this very nice and interesting presentation. And indeed, if you have questions, don't hesitate to visit the different companies which have their booth here in the exhibition area. Qualcomm as well as Nissan are present there. And then I'd like to introduce my last speaker for today, which is Mr. Shannon McGrath. He represents Euroelectric, and Euroelectric, they have a dedicated task force on electric vehicle, and we will hear their viewpoints about this. Mr. McGrath, the floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Euroelectric represents the electricity supply industry in Europe. It's the full members of Euroelectric are the electricity supply industry in the 28 member states and the 4 OECD non-member states, namely Norway, Iceland, Switzerland and Turkey. Euroelectric's objectives are that to deliver carbon neutral electricity in Europe by 2050, to ensure a cost-efficient, reliable supply through an integrated market, and to develop energy efficiency and the electrification of the demand side to mitigate climate change. They're the 3 published objectives of Euroelectric. So when we first sat down in the present phase to look at electric vehicles, the sort of questions that we looked at was, first of all, can the electricity system cope with the electrification of road transport? Is there a saving to be achieved in CO2 emissions, or are you merely transferring emissions from the tailpipe to the power station? And are there any other benefits or indeed any other issues for the electricity system? Well, to get the first question out of the way, first of all, and some of you may have heard me use this statistic before, but from our study, if in any country in Europe, all of the cars, 100% of the private cars were powered electrically, it would add something of the order of 20% to the total amount of kilowatt hours required in that country. If it turned out that between the European Commission, the national governments and the automotive industry, we succeeded in getting the electrification of transport from virtually zero at the moment to say 100%, and I'm not advocating that, I'm just taking it as an example, in a 20-year period, that would be a phenomenal achievement. But what it would represent to the electricity industry is an average of 1% increase in the total amount of kilowatt hours that would be required. In other words, very much business as usual, not an issue. Now, I've shown on the graph there typically daily demands from two of the countries. The bottom left is my own country, Ireland. Top right is the United Kingdom, roughly 10 times the size of our system. All European grids have periods when there's low electricity usage. If, in fact, it could be arranged, and again, I'm not suggesting that we should try to make customers run their transport to suit the electricity grid, but if it turned out that all of the charging for electric vehicles could be done away from the peak and particularly in the night valleys that exist, then we could power 100% of the cars in Europe electrically without having to add one bit of transmission line or one power station to the system. So, as I said, an average of 1% growth is itself not particularly huge, but if we managed to do it and put a significant amount of it into the off-peak period, it would mean that we would actually be able to get better results. We'd get more out of the electricity assets that we already have, which would lead to a reduction in the average price of electricity. Now, on the question of are we just transferring emissions from the tailpipe to the power station? Well, on the top right there, I show that in 2010, the typical fleet tailpipe for new cars was about 150 grams per kilometre. The European Union figure for 2015 is 130 grams per kilometre, and we know there have been a lot of angst over the debate about reducing that further to 95. Well, fuels like coal can vary, but typically, if you generated 100% of your electricity from coal, then you would, and using a typical car like a Nissan Leaf, you would achieve 130 grams per kilometre. So in other words, even if you generated everything from coal, 24 hours a day, and you use that to power your car, you would be at the 2015 figure already by moving to electric vehicles. Now, as the motor industry is capable of reducing beyond that 130, you might wonder if that was the situation, perhaps there is an argument not to electrify. However, if you look at gas generation, if you generate your electricity from gas, then your emissions are 50 grams per kilometre. And of course, if they're wind, they're down at 0. And if we look at, and the latest year for which I had figures right across the Union was 2009. If we look at the figure for 2009, the average, an electric car driving in Europe using the average generation mix from the European grid would have emissions of 56 grams per kilometre. And of course, that's 2009 figures. We're improving a lot since. But if in a country like Ireland or like Denmark, or other countries, but particularly Ireland and Denmark, where you have significant amounts of wind, in fact more wind than we're able to use. We have to switch off the wind because being an island we can't use all the wind that we've got. Our expectation is that, for instance, in Ireland by 2020, the electric car typically will charge using 80% wind and 20% gas, which would give you an emissions of 10 grams per kilometre. So if we look at the European grid, I said I used the figures for 2009, which showed there that in 2009, 20% of the electricity generated in Europe was from renewable sources, 28% from nuclear and 52% from fossil. That improved in 2011, 22% was from renewable sources. And in 2020, that figure will be 31%. And as I mentioned at the start, the European industry is committed to being carbon zero by 2050. So in the timescale in which electric vehicles will become a significant part of the infrastructure, there will be a significant carbon dioxide saving by moving to the electrification of. Now, the task force that Euroelectric has came into being in its present phase in 2008, and since then we have produced quite a number of briefing documents, policy statements, and like that. I just mentioned them there. Standardization, briefing on emerging market models. There's different market models. The reason we're in a position to know this is that there's practically nothing going on in Europe by way of demonstration that doesn't have utilities involved in it. The utilities are very heavily involved in everything going on electric vehicles, so we know exactly what's going on. At the top of the slide there, I show the web page for our publications, and people are welcome to go to and check them out if they want. So in summary, the European electricity system is ready now to power electric vehicles. CO2 reductions will happen immediately and will increase as the grid decarbonises. There may well be longer-term issues, but they can be managed. There will not be any significant benefit or significant issue for any national grid in Europe until the number of cars in any country reaches about 10%. However, by the time that you have 10% of the vehicles in any country will be electric, you will probably find that there will be clusters in residential areas where you may have 40% or 50%. There will be issues to be resolved there at distribution level, and we see the issues arising at distribution level much more in the shorter term than in the longer term. However, these are problems that the electricity supply industry is very capable of dealing with, and none of them are showstoppers. And certainly, with the idea of smart charging, all of the issues to do with charging electric vehicles can easily be managed, and electric vehicles then become not just a benefit for everybody else, but they actually become a very big positive for the operation of the electricity supply system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGrath, for this viewpoint of Euroelectric. Seeing the time, I will allow my three panelists to give a very, very brief and short reaction. And to trigger this reaction, often you get the discussion about the chicken and the egg. Do we need first infrastructure to charge the vehicles, or do we need first the vehicles and then the infrastructure? I would like to have your point of view, since we have all the actors here around the table. And in that sense, if we need infrastructure, Onidi, he talked about the different plugs and the preferences for types of plugs, but do we need plugs or do we need inductive charging? And finally, do we need a smart grid or do we need a smart home, which I saw also in this kind of presentations. So can I ask, well, let's go from my left to right. to give a very brief and short reaction.
Okay. From my experience viewpoint, infrastructure is not the concern in the beginning of the EV introduction because customer can charge at home. And when I use Nissan Leaf, I usually charge at home or at office. And EV customer can understand how EV works. Mileage is limited, then think about if we can go with this EV or not. And usually we do not think about, customers do not think about the interim charging. Just in case something happened, we need to indicate customer there is a charging point at the Nissan dealer, for example. But it works. And if a population or total amount of the EV will increase, some support from charging infrastructure must be prepared. But at this, in the first stage, customer understand how a customer can manage energy charging. And based on my experience, to plug into the electric vehicle is a little bit boring activities. Then, how to say, coming technology that explains another presentation, like in this, no need to plug the kind of charging system must be appreciated. And this is in progress. And the coming few years, it will be saleable in the market.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shirakawa, for this clear point of view. Mr. Thompson, what's your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to disagree with you. I think that provided that you understand what the electric car is for, and if you're just going back and forth to work with it, then maybe it's okay. But if you're trying to use it like a normal car, then the lack of infrastructure is quite profound, I think. And on a daily basis, if I have to make a decision to whether to use my electric car or not because of the trip I'm going on, try and look if there is somewhere to charge it on the way. So if it's more than just a commute back and forth to work, then I think it's profoundly important that we have infrastructure. And I also like the quote from your CEO, which is, I wouldn't buy a petrol car either if there wasn't any petrol stations. So I just think we've got to get on with putting the infrastructure in, and then the vehicles will follow a lot more strongly.
Thank you very much. And then a last feedback from Mr. McGrath.
We would agree that there is a basic amount of infrastructure that's needed to satisfy customers, to make a customer feel justified in going out and spending their money to buy a vehicle. They are not going to spend it and hope that somebody will provide infrastructure. So it is needed. The problem, as we found in Ireland, I'm not speaking on behalf of Euroelectric, but we did a study for the Irish government. The problem is that back in 2008 we did the study. You can't there is no justifiable business case for anything if there are no customers. And our view was that until such time as there were enough cars to have, in our case, we estimated about 50,000 cars, which would be roughly nearly 3% of the until it was 3% penetration. There was no business case. And nobody could make any business case because unless somebody said, well, I'm going to invest for the long term, but nobody will make money until the market gets beyond a certain level. And the question is, how do you get that initial amount? And then after that, we had no difficulty in showing our government that if we had 3%, 5% of all the cars were electric, they could have any type of business model. All business models would work once there are people with cars. The problem is if you don't have people with cars, you have nobody to pay the revenue side of the business model.
Okay. Thank you very much for my three panelists. Let's give them a very large applause. And then I'd like to close this opening session with two practical informations. If you want to know where the lunch is served, then you have to go through the exhibition. you can visit the exhibition, but I prefer you first go to the lunch,